So much media, so little time. Who keeps track of it all? That would be me. This is Bob Andelman, and this is the Mr. Media Interview, recorded live on blogtalkradio.com on April 2nd, 2008. I met James Sheehan at a St. Petersburg Times Festival of Reading event back in 2005. I was there promoting my new biography of Will Eisner, and he was writing a wave of excellent reviews for his first novel, The Mayor of Lexington Avenue. As we got to talking, however, we realized we had met before, through our dogs. Turns out Jim and his wife literally live around the corner from me. I walk my dogs several times a day, and his dogs had figured out a way of tunneling under an old wood fence. They didn't know how to get back once they were loose, however, so my wife and I returned them to the Sheehan's yard more than once over the years. They've got a new fence now, so that doesn't happen very often anymore. Anyway, a few weeks back, Jim and I met up again. He was on his way to South Carolina for a big booksellers event to launch his second novel, The Law of Second Chances. Jim gave me a copy to read, and I knew it was time to get my neighbor on the show. Jim, welcome to Mr. Media.
Thanks, Bob. Nice to be here.
How you doing, neighbor?
Good. I've got the dog safely tucked outside.
So you're home?
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, since you're home, I will be honest and fess up that my big dog pooped in your yard this morning, but I did pick it up.
I don't. It's good for the soil.
And Jim, you have the distinction of being the only guest ever on Mr. Media for whom I've done that, and probably the last. Although, I got to say, in saying that, the reality is that there's a guy who lives a block further west of you from me, Dave Shiver, who co-authored a book called Covert with Bob Delaney, the NBA referee, and he's actually going to be on the show in a few weeks. But I don't walk that way, so he doesn't have to worry about the dogs. Hey, so speaking of number two, how's it going with book number two?
It's going real well. The book is selling real well, and I've been traveling around going to different book shows and bookstores, and it seems to be going real well.
Any difference in the experience of the first book to the second book?
Well, for me, the difference is when I show up somewhere, if I'm going to a booksellers convention, the booksellers know me, and there's a lot of readers who have at least read The Mayor of Lexington Avenue, my first book, so it's a different kind of reception. As you know, when you go out, with your first book, it's like, you're knocking on doors and knocking on heads to kind of get a reception. So it's a lot different, just because it's my second book, and the first book was received so well.
Well, and the second book, I was just about to say this, the reviews for the second book have been quite generous and quite favorable as well. So
far, so good.
So let's talk a little bit how you got to this point. And let me give out the phone number if folks want to call in. I see we've had some activity already in the web chat that accompanies us. Folks, if you're listening live on April 2nd, give us a call, 646-595-3135, and you can ask Jim Sheehan some of your own questions. But so you've spent most of your life as a lawyer. What are you doing in the novel writing game?
Well, I actually started writing as a hobby, just to deal with the stress of being a trial lawyer. I needed something else. As you know, you probably see me running around the neighborhood. Just working out wasn't enough. I needed something a little bit, something that relaxed my mind. So I started writing. And I have a sister who...
Jim?
And she would coach me. And gradually I just started writing books.
Is that something? I mean, as a young man, did you think that you would do that, or is that something that came up much later?
Well, I always wanted to be a writer. I mean, it was always in the back of my mind. But I guess as a young, I had to go make a thing because I to the young age, and when you're young, it's hard to take the time to have this solitary pursuit. And so as I got older, I had more time. And it's kind of worked out well so far.
Jim, I'm going to ask you, is there any chance that you have a landline you could call back in on? Your cell is dropping out.
I actually don't, Bob. This is the only phone line I have right now.
All right, so folks, go out and buy some more copies of Jim's book so he can afford a landline. Come on now, let's help the guy out.
I actually don't want a landline.
No, okay. Well, we'll muddle through then. That's fine. I just thought I'd ask because some of what you were saying was kind of dropping in and out a little bit. How long did it take you to write the first book?
It took me about 8 months to write The Mayor of Lexington Avenue. And then, of course, as you also know, you have to edit it after that, and that process can take almost as long. But I actually, from beginning to end, it probably took me 8 months.
And had you published anything else before in your life?
No, but I had written 3 books before I actually had one published. So The Mayor, even though it's my first published book, is my 4th book. And, I've been doing a lot of appeals as a lawyer, so I've written literally hundreds of appeals.
Do you think we'll ever see those other 3 books?
Oh, yeah, I think so. I mean, I think that I'll have to clean them up a little bit and edit them a little bit better and kind of tighten the storyline. But I think eventually that they will be published. Right now, I'm just kind of I'm in a groove, so I'm just keeping going forward rather than working on getting those books published.
What do you think was different about the first 3 and the one that clicked, The Mayor of Lexington Avenue? And did you ever submit any of the other 3?
Yes, I did. It's an old writer story, I think, that you go through a lot of submissions and rejections as part of the process. And I didn't start writing with the goal of being published. I mean, it's always in the back of your mind, but I never really thought that eventuality was going to happen. So I just started writing, and then I just continued. And the reason I think that the 4th book was published is the more you write, the better you get, and you learn the process as you go along. And I had an author, a fellow named Greg Tobin, who's written a number of books of his own. He's an expert on the papacy, of all things. He edited my 3rd book, and that process of working with Greg was just an incredible learning experience for me. So it really helped me when I was doing the next book. Just the story was tighter and cleaner in every respect.
How did you feel about that first time that well, in this case that Greg edited you versus being alone with your books? And then how did you when you actually sold The Mayor? I'm sure you had an editor put you through your paces as well.
Yeah. Well, I think you mentioned I'm a lawyer by trade, so I'm used to going into a courtroom and making an argument and having somebody pick it apart. It's kind of part of the process of being a lawyer. One judge once said, if you're going to be a lawyer, you better have an alligator hide. So even though I'm a novice in writing, I understand the process, and it's two things. Criticism is not going to bother me because I have a lot of experience being criticized, and number two, it's a learning experience, and I'm very eager to learn, and I was very eager to learn, and you're never too old to learn, and you're never too experienced to learn, and it just helps to make you better.
So you wrote the first book in 8 months. How long did it take to write the second book, the second published book?
Probably about the same.
Okay.
The editing process on the Law of Second Chances was a little longer because my first book, The Mayor of Lexington Avenue, has been published all over the world now, and I have an English publisher, Transworld, which is a division of Random House. And so when I did the second book, they were involved as well. So I basically had two major editors, one from America and one from England. And it kind of lengthened the process.
Oh. Well, I actually noticed that the edition of the book that you gave me was actually, I was going to say European, but it's a UK version. It's not actually the American edition. Did that one come out first, or did it come out simultaneously?
Yeah, pretty much. In England, I think it came out in March at pretty much about the same time. It's the same book. There's just it's very interesting. They have a different cover than the book in America. I guess they have different artistic styles in England.
Now that's not you on the cover, is it?
No, but it's a pretty neat cover, isn't it?
It is, and I could say, that gentleman walking the street, I knew it was unlikely that was you, but I thought, that could pass as Jim.
Yeah.
Yeah. Which brings me to this question. I mean, where do the lines blur between real attorney Jim Sheehan and fictional attorney Jack Tobin, who is of course the character in both books.
Real attorney Jim Sheehan is a trial attorney, but he does civil law, while Jack Tobin is his background is in civil law, but he has decided that he has this obligation to defend people on death row, which the real Jim Sheehan has never done. And the other difference is Jack Tobin is a super lawyer. I mean, he's the best of the best, but he's got a good soul. And he makes a lot of mistakes in his own personal life, but he's searching for real meaning and things like that. So I think that's why readers really take to him.
I'm a little surprised to hear that you had not done death penalty or death row case, because certainly the handling of that in Law of Second Chances is really good. I just assumed that maybe you had done that.
No, I've never asked. It's something that I'm extremely familiar with. I've read a lot of books about the death penalty. I have lawyer friends who have been death penalty advocates, and I've read a lot of case law as well. about the death penalty. So, I'm a trial lawyer, so I understand the machinations of the courtroom, and I have familiarized myself with death penalty issues enough that I can write a book of fiction about it.
Well, and obviously you have.
I actually may get involved at some time in the future.
So fiction will become reality, you think?
Could be.
Interesting. And we talked about this on the street, but what's the status of your law practice right now? Is it kind of taking a back seat, or has it gone away?
It hasn't gone away. Get it.
Jim, if you can hear me, can you repeat your last comment? All right, folks, bear with us a second here. We're having some cell phone issues. Hopefully, Jim. We lost Jim's call. Hopefully, Jim will call back in. Let me give out the phone number again. If you'd like to ask Jim a question, it is 646-595-3135. And our guest today is James Sheehan, author of The Mayor of Lexington Avenue and his new book, The Law of Second Chances. I am just watching and waiting for Jim to call back in. While we wait, oh, there he is. Hold on. Jim, we got you back there.
Yeah, where'd you lose me?
It's the cell phone. It just keeps dropping out.
Yeah, I'm sorry about that.
No, that's all right. We were talking about the status of your practice, and you were saying that it's still active, and that's the last thing we heard.
Yeah, it is. It's still active, and I'm trying to phase out. I haven't been successful yet, but I want to make writing my future.
So you want to do it full time?
Yeah.
Yeah, I suspected as much. Have you heard from any of your real life clients about your books?
Yeah. People call me all the time and say, "I got your book. I read it. I loved it. It's terrific." Yeah, I hear from my clients all the time.
And what about people from further back? Are you finding that people you went to high school or college, you grew up with, are they discovering you on the in the bookstores and going, "Oh my God, I know that guy"?
Well, it's interesting that you mentioned that, because maybe some of the people who are listening haven't read the book. But in both my books, there is a story that goes back to Jack's childhood in the 50s and 60s, and it really it takes me back to my childhood in New York, and the Johnny and Mikey story is really a story about me and my brother. My brother was actually known as the mayor of Lexington Avenue, and although it's fiction, it's not. There's some reality to it, but the stories are fiction. And in the Law of Second Chances, there's a story about a football team called the Lexingtons. And I actually played on a football team called the Lexingtons. So I've had, with both of these books, I've had book signings in New York City, and my whole neighborhood has turned out.
Wow.
People I've gone to kindergarten with have turned out. So it's been really a very, very gratifying experience.
Oh, I know that's definitely fun when that happens.
Yeah, it's really terrific.
Has anyone disputed anything that they've read and said, "Hey, wait a minute, you didn't get that right. I was there"?
No. I mean, most of it is fiction. in the first book, it was really the story was about me and my brother and one of my best friends growing up. And the second book, it was about this football team, the Lexingtons, but the story is fictitious. The only relationship to reality is that there was a Lexington's football team, and they did play in this championship game. I actually did call a friend of mine who played on that team, and I said, tell me a couple of stories that you remember. And he did, and he actually sent me the program from the championship game that the Lexingtons played. And that's that story of the championship game is in the book. And he sent me the program from 40-something years ago.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah, it was really interesting.
Tell me about plotting the books. It's funny. I've done, I don't know, I think 10 books, mostly on the business or sports side, and they're nonfiction. And I believe in my heart that I could write fiction, but I look at the plotting and the intricacies of it, and somehow I just can't bring myself to get started. How, was that? Do you think your legal training helps you with that because you're used to thinking along multiple, threads at the same time, or, why does that work for you?
Well, I do think that your legal training does help because when you do trial work, you're basically the director of your case, mm-hmm. and you have to do all your discovery, and you have to gather all your evidence, and then you have to present it to a jury as if you're telling a story. Because, the truth is only what happens in the courtroom. So you do have that training. And for me, the way I go about plotting a book is I get the overall idea in my head of what I want to do and where I want to go. And then I just start from the beginning and, develop my main characters. And then I kind of follow them, if that makes any sense.
Yeah. You're kind of letting them lead.
Yeah, but I kind of know where we're going. It's, it's not a straight line, but it's a meandering road. And where we meander is really something that the characters will determine.
Mm-hmm. Well, I think in Law of Second Chances, I'm trying to count now in my mind the number of threads that we start with in the first portion. I'm thinking there's four separate story threads, I think, that go on in just the first section, the first half of the book. Is that right?
Right.
Yeah. And
that's the way I like to write my books. I like to have different story lines going, and the reader doesn't really know how they connect or if they connect. But they're interesting stories in and of themselves. And then in the second half of the book, I like to connect them, and then the pace of the book kind of picks up as you head towards a conclusion.
Well, I have to say that in the first half, and I always hesitate to talk about anything in the second half of these books because we don't want to give too much away. But I mean,
right.
the first half of the book, you think the book is about one thing and it's going one way, and then there's that twist, and then you're going in another direction. And that's the thing that when I see that well done, that always makes me go, I'm not sure I'm ready to do that. How old were you when you started doing this, Jim?
I started writing probably 15 years ago, maybe a little longer. So I was in my early 40s.
All right. Well, I guess it's getting late for me because I'm in my late 40s. So I guess I better get off the stick. And
well, you've written a lot of nonfiction, Bob. So you can You've got the experience.
Well, but you just haven't written until you've committed yourself to a novel. That's what I believe, and so I admire that greatly.
There's going to be at some point in time, there's going to be a story that hits you, and you're going to want to write it because you're a writer,
mm-hmm.
and that will get you to sit down and do it.
Now, this territory that you've moved into, you're creating what's become now a series of legal thrillers, so to speak, or not so much thrillers, but legal mysteries. John Grisham and Scott Turow are certainly the best-known guys in this genre, certainly this the lawyers turned novelist genre. What made you think there was room for a new guy?
I didn't.
Uh-huh.
I just started writing, and then my stories are about what I know, and that's practicing law in the courtroom. So I happen to be in the same genre as those guys, but I wasn't necessarily writing to become the next John Grisham or the next Scott Turow. I was just writing to relax and enjoy myself. So it's kind of worked out, but I never planned it. If that makes any sense.
It does. And we've mentioned the hero of the books, Jack Tobin. For people who haven't read either of the books yet, but maybe they're listening now or they're reading this interview, can you describe Jack a little bit and tell us a little bit of what he's like and what motivates him?
Yeah, Jack is he's kind of a late 40s, early 50s guy. He grew up in New York City, like I did, but he practiced law for most of his legal career in Miami. He started a civil defense firm, and it grew to be a 100-man firm. And then he got out. His partners bought him out, and he was planning on retiring to a little town in the middle of the state, actually in the middle of the state, but in the south, over by Lake Okeechobee, a little place called Bass Creek. And he was going to, basically be a part-time country lawyer and do a lot of fishing. But events took over, and he wound up in the Mayor of Lexington Avenue. He wound up representing Rudy Kelly, and then he found that he had this vocation to represent people on death row. So that's kind of how Jack came about. He also got reacquainted with one of his childhood friends, Pat, and they eventually became a team. And Jack's also he's a part-time athlete. He does triathlons and stuff, and he's in pretty good shape for a middle-aged guy. And that's pretty much a rounded description of Jack Tobin.
Any parallels in any of that to the guy who's writing these stories?
Sure.
Maybe the guy being in good shape. I think you fit that. You're in pretty good shape. You mentioned earlier we've seen you running around the neighborhood.
Bob sees me running around the neighborhood, so he knows. And I do the triathlons, and of course, I am a lawyer. So there are some parallels to my character.
So now I don't think I knew about the triathlons. Now, do you that's a long time where you're out there with your thoughts. Have you found in recent years that you use that time to plot, and you thinking about character and story in that time?
Oh, absolutely. I run a lot in the morning, and I'm always fixing plot scenes while I'm running. It's the best time because you're You're out there by yourself. Your mind is blank, and it's the best time to come up with solutions. You ever see that commercial where all these business types crowd into a shower? And the idea is that sometimes your best ideas and your best solutions come while you're in the shower, singing and not really thinking about anything. Well, that works when you're running too. Not necessarily when you're swimming, because you're trying not to drown.
You stay a little more focused then, is that what you're saying?
What's that?
I'd say you stay a little more focused when you're swimming.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And the same with biking, because, it's a little dangerous out there.
Why did you decide to continue with Jack Tobin in the second book rather than start fresh? Which I think, as I think back, I mentioned Thoreau and Grisham. Maybe I'm fooling myself here, but I don't recall that they'd gone back to the same character. I think they've gone new each time.
Well, I wasn't finished with Jack yet. And when you get a really good character, I think the readers like that. They like somebody they know, and they feel comfortable that they know this person, and they're interested to find out what he's doing now. That's not to say that I'm going to stay with Jack as I go forward, but I'm not finished with him yet. There's a lot of writers that have a main character that they continue in their books, and then they go off with somebody else. Like for instance, the 3 books that I don't have published are not Jack Tobin novels. So I don't necessarily think I'll always have him as a character, but I'm not finished with him just yet. I enjoy writing about him.
Jim, I have to tell you that there's a web chat that accompanies these live interviews, and I'm guessing it's a gentleman in there, and he describes himself as a barrister and aspiring novelist. And I typed in a note and asked if he had a question for you, and he responded, and he says, "It will come to me in the shower." So yeah. I know that he's listening. So Stoke, that would be his name. Stoke, welcome, and glad to have you there. If you have a question, if anyone has a question for Jim, let me repeat the number. It's 646-595-3135. What's been the most interesting thing that's happened to you, either personally or professionally, as a result of becoming a published author?
The most interesting thing that has happened to me since becoming, it's one of the things that's interesting is a lot of the judges locally have read my books, and I've been treated as nice as I've ever been treated by judges before. They got a kick out of it. And the other interesting thing that's happened to me, and I've already kind of alluded to it, is going back home and reconnecting with so many people that I grew up with. That's really, really, really been fun and very gratifying. And this when the mayor, when the Law of Second Chances just came out last month, we opened it with a book signing in New York, and I have 3 children, and they all came with me. And to see my children meeting people that I was children with was, it was just fantastic. It was very, very, very interesting. So we all had a good time.
And you're being recognized for something completely different than you had been, that you've been doing all those years. I can appreciate that.
Yeah.
Have you found yourself? Have you met up with other authors? Have you
Oh, yeah.
Those kind of conversations?
Oh, yeah. There's several authors that I have become friends with in Florida. There's a fellow named Bob Morris who's written 3 or 4 books. They're centered in the Caribbean. There's another fellow named Jim Bourne who writes these kind of cop action stories. He's a DLE agent in Florida. We work together, and we have a lot of fun together. South Carolina is a great place for that because they kind of put all the authors together in the same hotel, and they have events for you, and it's really great. You meet a lot of wonderful people.
Well, I remember the event that we officially met at, the Times Festival of Reading when Mayor of Lexington Avenue came out, and it just cracked me up to think that you were literally around the block. I mean, that's the coincidence of that was something. Maybe we can start a little club here on the island.
Yeah, there are some. There's quite a few authors around here that I didn't know.
Well, we're just so popular that we have to hide from all of our fans. It's really what it is. And if you believe that, are you working on book 3, Jim? See, this keeps happening. Okay, I'm going to talk for just a minute while hopefully Jim calls back into us. You're listening to Mr. Media, a mostly live interview with James Sheehan, author of The Mayor of Lexington Avenue and The Law of Second Chances. Our call-in number is 646-595-3135. I think we've got Jim back on the line. Jim, I'm hoping you're there.
I am. I think my phone dies every 15 or 20 minutes.
Well, cell phone coverage is not necessarily the best where we live, depending on your carrier.
Right. Yeah.
We have let me go to this. We have a question from the web chat. Stoke is asking if you could talk a little bit about the circumstances behind your first break as an author. How did it finally happen for you?
My first break, very interesting. As I told you, I have a sister that is in the business, and she's kind of always been kind of my mentor. She's read everything I've ever written and coached me and kind of helped me to become a writer. And she's also helped me to become successful in this business because when my first book came out, she knows Nelson DeMille. And she asked Nelson DeMille to read it. And didn't tell him that I was her brother, but she just asked me if he'd read this book. And he did. And he gave me a quote that I probably couldn't have written myself. I think it's on the back of the cover of The Law of Second Chances. He says, if you like South Florida crime novels, legal thrillers, and courtroom dramas, then you'll love The Mayor of Lexington Avenue. This is a debut novel, but it reads like it was written by a master of the genre. Pretty good quote. And so
Not bad.
That kind of got me started. Then we got orders from the big people, Borders and Barnes & Noble, and that kind of got us going. And then I got a Chicago Tribune review, and then eventually I got New York Times review.
And then the dam broke.
Then the dam broke.
Is there anything you would do differently if you could go back to that? If you could go back to the Mayor of Lexington Avenue after it was published? Is there anything you thought, I wish that I had done this or that?
Well, there's not anything I would do differently. I think that every time at least for me, every time I write a book, I think it gets a little bit better. The storyline's a little tighter. So I think that the Law of Second Chances is a little tighter than the Mayor. But I don't think there's anything that I would necessarily change. If I was going to change anything, I probably would have started writing 20 years earlier. But you never know. Maybe I wouldn't have had anything to write about.
Right. I just realized that when we lost you on that last call, what I had asked you was if you were at work on book 3, and I was going to ask if that's another Tobin novel.
Yes, I am at work on book 3, and it is another Jack Tobin novel. But it's a completely different story. It actually, both my first 2 novels took place in New York and Florida, and this third novel is going to be it's going to take place in mostly in Florida, but there's going to be parts in Colorado and South Carolina and even Honduras.
Wow.
And it's a whole new cast of characters, and it's a much different story from the first 2 stories.
Is there any room in that book for a character who just happens to be like an online media guy, who maybe helps break the case, that kind of thing?
Who solves everything, and is absolutely one of the greatest people in the world. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. We can probably fit him in there.
Oh, good. Do you have people who know you saying, "Hey, could you kind of write me in as a character?"
Well, they don't. I do have that, but mostly they want to star in the movie. Everybody wants a part in the movie. Like as if you have something to do with anything like that. Very funny.
Now, the first book was optioned for a movie, wasn't it?
What's that?
Mayor of Lexington Avenue was optioned, wasn't it?
No, actually, we've had several producers look at it, and people have. I guess you could say it was optioned, but it's as of right now, it's not being made into a movie. But it still might be down the road. Who knows?
I'm sorry. I guess maybe it's positive thinking on my part. I assumed it'd make a good movie, so I assume that will happen for you at some point.
Yeah. Everybody says that, but so far it hasn't happened.
Well, Stoke has another question for you from the web chat.
Okay.
He's wondering if you plot out your stories on a storyboard, or maybe as I'm visualizing it, maybe putting up post-it notes, or do you just start writing and piece it together later?
I actually, when I start with a plot, and I don't necessarily post it, but I do start with a plot in my head, and in this third book, I've actually written it out, and that has helped me a lot because every time you write a book and you have a general plot, as you go along, there are a lot of snags in the plot. There's snags of all kinds. There's believability issues. There's character issues. So it is. I think I'm moving towards thinking that it is better to kind of write out an outline, maybe 3 or 4 pages in the beginning, so you can even as you write it, you can see some of the snags that you're going to run into, and then kind of work on. But I like it to be loose, so that it allows for creativity when you're writing. so that you're not following some strict schedule. A lot of writers have these strict things that they have to do. Chapter 1 has to be this, chapter 2 has to be this, and I'm not like that. I'm just it's just kind of it just moves along at its own natural pace.
Well, speaking of schedules, when are you due to deliver book 3, and do you have a publication date already mapped out?
I don't. As a matter of fact, I don't have any publication date for it. So I'm just moving along, and because I have a 2-book deal, and the Law of Second Chances is the second book. So I haven't signed a contract for the 3rd book yet. So I'm just writing, and without a deadline, which is, as you know, the best way to write. Well, some people think it's not.
I'd go the other way with it. I like to have that deadline, because then it pushes me to get it done, and I know that, when I reach that point, it's done, and I can move on to the next. So I like that deadline.
Yeah.
But, so why do I sense an option in your future?
A what?
An option for the rights to the next 2.
An option?
No, an auction of editors bidding on the next 2 books.
Oh yeah, that could very well happen. I don't know. You know what? I'm with St. Martin's now, and we get along pretty well. St. Martin's Press, and I'd like to stay with them, but we'll just see. I mean, you know how that works. Sometimes it's when you're a writer, it's almost like you're an athlete. You can become a free agent and go to the highest bidder, but like everything else in life, that may not necessarily be the right decision.
Do you have many appearances? And I don't necessarily mean smaller local bookstores, but will you be showing up in places in the coming year where people can find you and get their books signed and talk to you about Jack, Henry, and Pat?
Well, it's very funny. I've been doing a lot of traveling already. I've been to South Carolina to the book festival there, and I've been up to New York City, and now in the month of April, I'm doing bookstores in Florida. I'm doing Inkwood Books in Tampa tomorrow night, and I'm doing Haslam's in St. Petersburg next week. And Saturday I'm in the Keys, and then the week after that I'm over on the East Coast. And then at the end of April, I'm doing the LA Book Festival, and then I'm going to be doing some bookstores up in the San Francisco area. I plan on doing a lot of stores and events in the Southeast during the month of May. Unfortunately, I just got set for a federal trial in the middle of the month.
Oh.
I don't think the judge is going to let me out because I'm writing books and I'm doing a book tour. So I have a little bit of a quagmire going there.
I see. Yeah, that's. I can't make it to trial. I've got to go sign books. Sorry.
Yeah.
Yeah, that might not work.
No.
Well, Jim, it's been wonderful to talk to you professionally today, as opposed to the normally the waves from the side of the road, or chatting to you as you're winding up a run. I wish you a lot more success. I actually want more Jack Tobin stories, so I'm looking forward to reading more of them.
Oh, good. And thanks for having me, Bob. And I'm sorry about the cell phone, but I'm just trying to downsize my life in every way.
I understand. I understand completely. And, the cell is good because you take all your calls and your callers with you.
Yeah,
wherever you go.
Exactly.
All right. Well, Jim, thank you so much for coming on Mr. Media today and telling us, about the books and where it's all going.
Thanks for having me, Bob.
All right. You take care.
Take care. Bye-bye.
And, folks, thank you for listening today. You can order James Sheehan's books, The Mayor of Lexington Avenue and The Law of Second Chances, from, as they say, fine booksellers everywhere. For dozens more celebrity and media newsmaker interviews, surf over to our main website, www.mrmedia.com. That's where you can listen to my earlier conversations with Billy Bob Thornton, Cheryl Hines, Milo Ventimiglia from Heroes, David Fury, producer of 24, Anna Gunn from Breaking Bad, Stephen Pastis, the cartoonist behind Pearls Before Swine, and many others. And you can also read full transcriptions there. And please think about writing an online review of Mr. Media or marking Mr. Media as one of your favorites, whether you listen on Blog Talk Radio, Blueberry, Zencast, Odeo, or iTunes. And come back again tomorrow, April 3rd, when my live guest will be Bill Prady, co-creator, executive producer, and writer of CBS's hit new sitcom, The Big Bang Theory. Talk to you again soon, folks.